Welcome to the latest in our series of 10-minute grammar lessons looking at common mistakes made by upper intermediate to advanced level students. This video looks at the problem of word order when using adverbs. So what are adverbs? Well, they're words that modify verbs, adjectives or even other adverbs, sometimes even whole clauses. You'll know them when you see them, and you probably use them, or you do use them all the time. The problem students tend to have with these adverbs is where to put them in a sentence or a statement. For example, you'll often hear or read mistakes like this. Hopefully you spotted the mistakes here. This is where these adverbs should be. Now look at these 6 statements that were made by upper intermediate and advanced level English students. They all contain mistakes in word order. Where do you think the highlighted adverb should be? Stop the video and start it again when you've finished. Okay, before we look at correcting these statements, let's look at some general guidelines for the position of adverbs. Unfortunately, there are no strict rules as to where adverbs must appear. In many cases, they can appear in more than one position in a sentence, before or after the subject, or at the beginning and the end of a clause. But in general, adverbs tend to appear in one of 3 positions: before the subject, between the subject and the main verb, and after the subject and the verb, usually at the end of the clause. As you probably know, adverbs are used for a variety of reasons. For example, to talk about how frequently something happens, to describe the manner in which something happens, or to act as a focusing mechanism. We will look at a few uses here in relation to word order. Now, comment adverbs are adverbs like luckily, clearly or obviously, and these come before the subject if we want to highlight or focus attention on the clause that follows. And when we're speaking, we usually pause after the adverb, and in the written form we use a comma. But these adverbs can also appear between the subject and the main verb, but after an auxiliary verb like have or would if one exists. Adverbs of frequency like always, sometimes, never, these usually go between the subject and the main verb, but again after the auxiliary verb or the verb to be. Then there are focus adverbs like only or even or just, and these usually go between the subject and the main verb, and again after the auxiliary verb if there is one. But if the adverb is used to describe the subject, it can go at the beginning. Now, other adverbs that indicate definite times, such as next week or every year, and adverbs of manner, such as well, quickly and carefully, often appear at the end of the clause. Yet is another adverb that often appears after the verb at the end of the clause. Okay, so let's look again at these 6 statements and see where the mistakes were. Now, as we've just seen, yet usually appears at the end of the clause. So this should be, I haven't taken my exam yet. Now this is a focus adverb. Here it's highlighting or focusing the length of time. and goes between the subject and the main verb, but after the auxiliary verb. So it should be, I've only been studying English for 3 years. Now this is an example of a definite time adverb, so would appear before the subject or at the end of the clause. So we can have either during the summer, I went to a holiday resort in Italy, or I went to a holiday resort in Italy during the summer. Adverbs of frequency go between the subject and the main verb, but after that auxiliary verb. So this should be, my parents have always been very encouraging and supportive. This is an example of a comment adverb and so comes before the subject. So it should be, I'm not sure which university to go to, but hopefully I'll get a place at a good one. It can also go between the subject and the main verb. So I will hopefully get a place at a good one. And finally, this is another example of an adverb of frequency, and the adverb goes after the verb to be. Our English teacher is usually able to explain how to use certain words. Okay, before we finish, let's try a short test. Try putting the adverb in bold in the correct place in the following statements. Here's the first one. Okay, so this is an adverb of frequency, so should go between the subject and the main verb, but remember after the auxiliary verb. So it should look like this. Okay, try this one. Yes, as you now know, yet generally appears at the end of the clause, like this. Okay, what about this one? Okay, this is a focus adverb, focusing on the grandmother, so it appears here. And finally, try this one. Okay, so this adverb goes after the subject and the verb to be, like this. Okay, that's the end of this quick lesson on the position of some of the common adverbs. If you're preparing for Cambridge FCE, CAE or CPE, don't forget to visit flo-joe, our website for Cambridge exams. IELTS students should head over to ieltsspeaking.co.uk for lots of free materials to help you prepare for the speaking paper. And finally, for general speaking practice, visit splendidspeaking.com. Speaking skills for advanced learners of English.